Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie here at First United Methodist in Yankton, South Dakota, and I'm glad you could join me for this episode. This episode, I have a special guest with me, Susan Shavey. Susan is the chair of our leadership team and also serves on our staff parish relations team as a part of leadership team. And she's here today because we're going to be discussing some opportunities that we have, some changes that are happening in the staff of the church and ways that you can get involved. And so, Susan, thanks so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
I think this is the first time I've gotten you on here, and you've been the chair since January, so this is long overdue.
Right. We'll see how it goes.
So before we dive into what we're going to talk about, Susan, just share a tiny bit about yourself for those who might not know that much about you.
I'm a lifelong Methodist. I hate to say that I think I was confirmed in 1959, so you can do the math. I've lived in Yankton since 2000, and I've been a member of this church, but I've always been a lifelong Methodist. And as my family, we're lifelong Methodists. I come from a long line of preachers and teachers, and many of my family have been Methodist ministers or who were teachers, professors in the seminary. So I've got a long background.
You are way more pedigreed in Methodist than I am. I do not come from a long line of Methodists. I'm the first Methodist in quite a while in my family, but
we trace our membership back to Georgia in the 1820s.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
that's amazing. The other, I think, relevant piece of information. So SPR, if you're not aware, that's how we shorten staff parish relations or pastor parish relations. SPR, PPR. It's in kind of layman terms, you are the...
We're the HR people for the church.
Right. And Susan, what did you do for a living?
I was an HR person. How about that?
So you are a very appropriate person to be serving in the way that you are, and we're so grateful.
Hopefully. Sometimes it's trying to be in that position because you can't find people to hire, which is something we're going to talk about. And there's other aspects too. They're not so much fun, but for the most part, it's wonderful to see people blossom in their positions and use their time and their talent to do wonderful things. And that's what I'm hoping.
And who is on your team that you work with as for like the hiring and that kind of thing at the church?
Amber Rini and Karen Miller are the other members of the team, the SPR team. And we go about trying to write job descriptions to determine who would be good fits for positions, how we need to make changes. We manage the budget for the staff as well.
And they do some evaluations and things like that as well. So it's no secret that we've had some transitions this summer with our staffing. We've had the most incredible staff, and it makes me so sad that we are now in a position of having things open, and not because staff were unhappy or there was no drama, I would say, or anything. It's just Sue May, who's been the bell choir director for literally years and years, is moving to Nebraska, and we wish her the best. And we realize that those are some incredibly large shoes to fill. And so let's talk a little bit about Sue and the bell choir director role.
The bell choir director role requires what I'd call some administrative work. It's not just playing or directing. There's music to be chosen. There's an organizational aspect to it. There's recruiting team members. In the past, the bell choir director directed the children's bells as well as the adult bells. And there's been a bell choir director and bell choir ever since I've been here since 2000.
And I think long before, like quite a while before that. So one of the things that we've been able to cover in the work that, so I've been working really closely with Susan and SPPR on this. And one of the things that we have been able to cover in the time that we've been looking for this position is Sarah Clavon, who is our praise team director. Her gifting is really in working with children. That's kind of a passion that she has. And so she's actually going to be taking on all children's music here in the church, which will include bells, but also include maybe choir and include some other kind of creative musical outlets for our children. And so when we are looking for a bell choir director, we are actually only looking for the adult bell choir, the Jubilee Bells.
Right. And separating those two positions may make it a little more acceptable in terms of time to be spent doing this job. Originally, we thought it would take 10 to 12 hours a month. I'm not sure that that's accurate now. And again, job descriptions have to be changed because of this new development with Sarah. But we hope that that will make it more easy for someone to accept this position.
And we are willing to train. And Sue May is willing in the next year to come back and walk alongside someone who wants to take on this role. We have spoken with the Bell Choir, Jubilee Bell Choir, and kind of gotten some names and ideas from them of who they think might be the right fit. But we are still looking. And so the reality is, if nobody steps up to direct the Bell Choir, we might not have a Bell Choir.
And that would be truly sad because they've added so much. If you saw the performance they did the last day that Sue was actually in charge,
loved
that
it.
was the journey and
Don't Stop Believing.
Performance, and it was absolutely wonderful and makes me tingle to think about it. And after seeing that group perform, after we had seen the Dakota Wesleyan folks perform their bell choir, our folks were as good as, if not better, than those college kids. So
Absolutely.
we had a lot to be proud of. So the person that steps into this job may feel a little bit intimidated. They really shouldn't. It's something that you could take and make your own. And I think that should be a very exciting thing to be able to do.
And it's a really solid group. It's a group that they know what they're doing. It'd be easy to fold new people in. Really wonderful, bonded group of people. So we really want to see this continue. We really want to find someone who believes in the bell choir as much as we do, and is willing to say, I'm willing to try. I'm willing to, and maybe the answer is I'm willing to cover this for a year as you continue to look maybe for a more permanent fit. And that would be a blessing as well. And so that's the first thing we want you to know a little bit about what we've been doing. It's not like we've just been sitting around twiddling our thumbs.
Right.
And to, again, put that plea out there, because the last thing we want is to not have a bell choir because no one was willing to step into that role.
If you are a member and you've enjoyed the bell choir in the past and you don't see things look different, people are always worried about change. If you don't want to see things look different, then this is an opportunity for someone with the skills to do it.
Yeah. All right, so that's the first one. And I would say, for me personally, that would be the most intimidating because Sue did such a great job.
Right.
And it is hard to step in to a role after someone has been there for a while and done such an outstanding job. So I understand the hesitation, but also know that we're here for you. So
Right.
The next two roles that are three roles, really, that we're looking to fill were all served by one person, which I think was part of the problem because you get too many hats. It can become overwhelming, especially if you're not a full-time employee. So Julie Moderager was serving over 3 different roles in her job. She has been the Kids Hope Director for quite a while, and then she also took on in the last year the head of Parish Care and Outreach. Parish Care and Outreach was formed before I came and combined our member care work with our mission and outreach work. That is a big load for anybody, and it was pretty evident early on that really became a stressful thing for that team, that committee that was doing that work. And then when Julie took it on, again, became a pretty big load for someone who was already working a full-time job. And Julie does wonderful work at Webster Elementary. And so she recognized that this was maybe too much for her and has chosen to take a step back. And we completely support that decision. We have learned a lot from her on maybe ways to do things a little bit better, a little more equitable, and a little more sustainable. And so we're so grateful to Julie for putting in all of that hard work this last year in particular, and for helping us to have clear vision for the future. So we have decided to split that, what she was doing, into 3 different roles. The first is a Kids Hope director. Initially, we were advertising for that. Since that time, and there were kind of no takers. Again, you're going to hear a theme here. We realized that it could be pretty easily folded into Tiffany's role as the children's ministry coordinator here at the church. And so Tiffany brought that to our attention, and she's going to be taking on that coordinator position as part of the work that she does with the children of the church. And this would then extend to our connections into the community. And that made a lot of sense. So that role is going to be covered in that way. So we'll still have Kids Hope. So if you're interested in being a mentor, please let Tiffany know. If you've never been a mentor before, we would love to have new people, but there is a little bit of training that you have to do online prior to the start of the school year. And then we decided to split the member care side of things and the mission and outreach. And so let's talk first about the member care, because there's some good news there.
Yes, member care really encompasses things that are internal to the church, caring for our own congregation. And in that are things like the coffee fellowship, the libraries that are present, they need oversight. There's going to be a number of duties. And we have had a wonderful experience in that Danny Fromm, you may have known Danny from the nursery, has accepted this position. She will take over the member care role beginning on August 1st. So we're thrilled about that, and we encouraged her, and actually we told her, you need to do this. You need to recruit a team to help you with this. It's not like you have to do all these things yourself. You need to recruit a team. So don't be surprised if you get a phone call or a pat on the shoulder, or maybe if you're nudged to use your time and talent, just simply approach her about giving her a hand. We don't think it needs to be a huge team, maybe 2, 3, 4 people. That sort of has to work itself out because this is all brand new. But again, thrilled that Danny has accepted this position.
Yes, so praise God for that, and praise God for Danny. We loved having her work in the nursery, and as we moved away from that, I feel like this is going to be a really good fit for our church, and I'm excited for the ways in which she's going to support the current membership of the church in a variety of ways, and getting all of you to be included as well. So that leaves
Missions
and outreach. Yes.
That's probably the biggest thing that we're going to have to cover, and we need to look at this on a kind of on a strategic level, simply because if no one takes this position again, we're going to have to discontinue the outreach that we do in the community. For example, the banquet, Loads of Love, the Sweetheart Tree, Angel Tree. Many things we're not going to be able to do if we don't have somebody that will take over the overseeing of them. It's possible if we don't get one person that we can accept that one person would take on one of those things. For example, the banquet. One person would take charge of that job. We really don't want to, well, we have a reputation. Someone told me, oh, the Methodist Church, those are the people who are always getting things done. We really don't want that to change.
No.
And if you're interested at all, again, we'd hope that you'd recruit a team to help you. That would be expected. And in terms of the position itself, it could be either paid or unpaid if you want to volunteer your time for this process. we're trying to be as flexible as we possibly can as we develop this. And again, it's all brand new. We're not sure how it's going to shake out yet, but it's possible that this team could take on even new things if we could just do that. So that would be wonderful. If that's possible, we'd sure like it.
Yeah, so we're still looking for someone who would be kind of the overseer and coordinator and recruiting the kind of point people for all these different missions that we do. So making sure that there are people that are covering the banquet, making sure that there are people that are covering Loads of Love, making sure there are people covering Angel Tree and all of those different things. That's what that mission coordinator would do, is to make sure that there are people, not that the mission coordinator is responsible for doing all of it, but that they have people in place for all of those things. If a mission coordinator cannot be found, basically our plan B is that we will do our best to try to find, again, those people that would do the individual missions or outreach projects, who would then find their own teams. And if we cannot find anybody that would take it on and be the point person, unfortunately, the reality is we probably wouldn't be able to do that project any longer. And again, what Susan and I are saying is that's absolutely not what we want to have happen. But the reality is, if no one is passionate enough to take it on so that it does not fall away, that tells us something as well, that maybe we don't have enough investment in those things for us to continue to do them. And that's, again, not what we want. We want to be a church that is in the community. That's part of our mission. That's who we are. But we also have to be realistic about if our people are unwilling, then it's not something for us to be doing. And so, again, if you feel that nudge on your heart, again, and I want you to hear, the mission coordinator position, their job is not that they do everything. It is not their job to do everything. It is their job to recruit and find people to plug into all of the things, to make sure that it's promoted, to make sure that, again, it's a lot of coordinating, it's sign-up sheets, there's, again, pieces of administration to it. But really, it's those relationships and recruiting and enabling the church to do the mission. And so that's
pretty much it. And if you're interested, applications are on the table outside the office door. There's a volunteer application and an employment application. If you want to do this as a volunteer, fill that one out. If you want to do it as an employee, fill that one out. And if you could see that they get to me, or at least to Lisa, so she can notify me to pick them up, then the leadership, the SPR team will take a look at that and be in touch with you. If you have questions about any of this, please don't hesitate to call me. My number is in the phone book. It's best actually if you text, because I get so many robocalls that sometimes I'm not good at answering even 605 and 402 calls.
I understand that.
Right.
Yeah. So those are some of the opportunities, but there's one more opportunity that we want to talk about. And it seems strange that we're talking about it now because it's not something that would take effect until January, but believe it or not, this is the time for us to be thinking about it.
Right. We have positions that will be available on the leadership team. As the leadership team works, there's trustees, the finance folks, and SPR. There are 3 members on each of those teams, and we provide input and make decisions that affect the whole church. Sometimes I've had said to me, people don't know who to ask if they have a question. Well, all you have to do really is ask one of those folks on the leadership team. They'll get it directed to the right person. You certainly can ask Pastor Katie, funnel a question through Lisa. She'll get it directed to the right person. But, we have a lot of things coming up in the future. The idea of the financial situation, we've had discussions about disaffiliation and kind of come to a conclusion about that. But the leadership team wants to be as transparent as possible about all budget issues, all issues that affect the church. We want input, and it's helpful if we have people of diverse backgrounds, ages. We'd like to have more people be involved by applying. There's also an application for the leadership team on the table outside the office.
And on our website.
And on the website. We really would like to have people start applying now because the leadership team needs to be approved in charge conference. That will take place sometime this fall. We're not exactly sure when. So
we don't get to decide
Yeah.
that comes from the DS.
Right. So we would like to have that in place. And plus, then you get a little bit of mentorship for the people that are going to be leaving the team. The typical rotation is 3 years for a position. Sometimes life circumstances changes and you have to take a step back, or it's just time for your natural rotation to come off, or you've been serving way too long.
And that's been a reality within our church, is we had people who had been serving in positions for years and years and years. And so we're really trying to honor, we do allow for a re-up. And so you can serve leadership team up to 2 terms in a row, and then you have to take time off. And so we kind of have a joke on leadership team that the leadership team needs to work hard to find their replacements. But we also want to make it very clear that if you are a member of our church, that this is something we want you to consider. And you might be feeling like, unqualified, but these are all things that you can learn. And as you come on, you're not coming on being the sole decision maker, that these are things we really discuss together, that we really work together to do. But it is the business side of the church. It's the administrative side of the church. And so the leadership team is really looking, again, at the finance side, at looking at budget, looking at stewardship, asking some really tough questions there. We've got our trustees who are looking at the building, looking at things like our flat roofs and fun stuff like that. If that's up your alley and you have some knowledge, maybe from working on your own home, that can really translate. And then our SPR really looking a lot at our staffing stuff in particular. And then together working on things like, our relationship to the conference, our vision and how everything aligns with it, any big budgetary decisions and things like that. Ministry side of things fall under my purview, and the staff more so, or the volunteer. Leadership team has a role in that, and especially with SPR, and that they're the ones hiring the staff. But really, like ministry decisions tend to be made more on my side of things. I actually don't have a vote on leadership team unless there's a tie. I get to talk a lot.
You should know too that we don't always agree. And you need to have those different points of view to bring up questions that maybe somebody hadn't thought of. It's not a rubber stamp kind of a deal at all.
No.
We have discussions. I wouldn't say they're intense,
No.
but they are respectful and
But honest.
and we do take other people's points of view. You can't have all your experiences. I don't ask me anything about doing anything mechanical, please do not. But I can tell you about, probably, not always, about how to deal with people. So we need to have that diversification. When somebody's thinking about something very technical, they may not see the people side of things. So we have to have a good balance that's happening.
So if that's something that you feel like maybe you could be a part of that, the leadership team does not meet monthly at this point. We meet quarterly plus a few extras as we have things that need to be taken care of. And then we also do the town hall meetings. Again, we're doing town hall meetings as our way of really trying to be accessible and open and transparent. And again, if you feel like you've got a question and you're not sure who to ask, always start with me. I'm the most visible, and I will direct you wherever you need to go. But also know that we have our leadership team, that the people are listed as we have our announcements scrolling. We also have their names and photos listed as you walk into the church, because they really do they're there to serve. And so we're not trying to hide them away by any means. We want them to be front and center, because this is ultimately your church. And the leadership team are people who have committed to and belong here and have investment here. And so they are really here for the church, and they're doing the work for all of us.
Don't think you're too young. Don't think you're too old. I had someone tell me yesterday, well, I've kind of done my time. Well, that doesn't mean that time is over. I will give
Do you have an opinion about the church?
Yes, right. I will give you an example. Up until COVID, Nita Thompson, who passed away sadly not long ago, was in her late 90s and still being part of the church in terms of committee work. So she served as an example of that you're not too old.
I mean, ideally, it would be best to have represented on leadership team kind of all the different generational people that are represented in the church, or different cultural or different, because again, if you exist in the church, then your voice should be represented in some way. And so again, if everyone who is above a certain age thinks I'm too old to do this, but yet everyone above that certain age has a viewpoint and hopes and dreams for the church, who's sharing those at leadership team? Nobody. So that's why we need you. If you're under a certain age, and I am no longer the youngest person on leadership team, by the way. Eric Lancaster, who serves on our finance team, is I think a month or something younger than me. So again, though, I'm getting closer to 40 than I care to admit to myself. That's not the youngest. There are people that, again, we need a variety of voices that can come to the table and share and ask questions and challenge assumptions, and really ask the questions of, does this align with who we want to be? Does this investment align with our vision and with our mission and purpose? And just really, you learn the ropes by doing it, honestly.
Right. I probably am the oldest, and that's okay, because I've had lots of experiences that lead me to where I am today. And I do the best I can. That's all anybody can be expected to do. I try to keep the congregation in mind, Pastor Katie in mind, certainly the staff in mind, our finances in mind, but it's doable. And it's not like that it runs my life. It does not. So again, I encourage you, if you are so inclined to share your talents and your time with this church, it would be a treasure to us all.
If you have giftings with math, budgeting, finance, that is a great opportunity for you to serve. If you are more of a hands-on person who has knowledge around construction, who has knowledge around maintenance, around landscaping, around anything like that, insurance, trustees would be a great fit for you and their fun group. If you are someone who's good with people, someone who really loves our staff and loves working with and understanding how to deal with conflict or with just supporting people, SPR is a great fit then for you. We also always will open up the lay leader position for applications every year, as well as our annual conference delegate position. Our annual conference delegates also need to apply. We have currently 3 delegate positions, and so if that is an interest that you have, maybe you don't want to be on leadership team, but you'd be interested in going to annual conference, you can apply for that at any time as well. Again, all of those things need to be approved at our charge conference sometime this fall, and so you have a little bit of time, but not a lot of time. So please consider that. Please be open to the Spirit's nudging, because I love the people that we have serving in those roles, but we also are very committed to, if this is something that's on your heart, then we want to know about it. And maybe it's the right time for you to be doing some of these things.
I will give you a couple of time limits. The position for the missions will become available August 1st as Julie rotates out of her job. And we'd like to have the leadership team applications by the 1st of October, simply because of the timing of all. There may have to be vetting to be done. There may need to be interviews. We just don't know.
So, I think we've shared a lot of information.
More than maybe we expected.
Maybe more than we should have. But again, we're here to be transparent. And there's nothing really that we're trying to hide. There's nothing for us to really hide. Again, if you have questions, please, please, please reach out to Susan. And she, again, is the chair of both leadership team and SPR, who's doing a lot of the staffing work, or me, and we'll be happy to visit with you and try to answer any questions that you might have. But we really, ultimately, we want you to pray over these positions. We want you to pray over the people that might say yes, and maybe that person is you. And also pray over the ways in which you can step up and be actively involved in the things that we're doing here in the church. There's a lot of roles that have gone unfilled. And I think all of us can work together to make sure that we have all of these things covered throughout the year.
And if you know somebody you think would be good at that role, give them a nudge. Right.
All right. Well, until next time, Susan, you're going to be sharing this again in church on Sunday, a shorter
Correct.
version. Otherwise, that would be the church service. But,
And it's in the reminder as well.
and you'll see it in the reminder as well. So look for Susan this Sunday in worship. I will not be there. Again, I'm going to be off this next week on a mandatory retreat. I just feel, I don't know why I keep feeling the need to say that, but I just want you all to know they're making me go. Retreat. So I will be out of the office this week, but please call if you have any needs. We have people who can cover for whatever is needed. So look for Susan this week. Also, don't forget to bring your Habitat for Humanity mission bucket offering. Remember, the first $500 is going to be matched, and so 2 for 1. It's definitely worth your time. If you didn't catch last week's episode with the director of Habitat for Humanity, check that out. And if you like these podcasts, tell someone about it, share them, there is a button under here that you can click to share, and share it with a friend and say, hey, did you know that this is going on in our church? And I wanted you to know about it. That would be awesome. So until next time, God bless. Thank you for listening to this episode of What's Going On. We'd love to have you join us for worship here at the church on Sundays at 10 a.m. You can also find us online via our website at firstumcyankton.org or search for us on YouTube.